Hi, everybody. This is Dan Stolbarger. Welcome to our weekly Middle East update. We simply call it the update. And it's the week of May 23rd. We're going to look back over the events of the last week. Let me encourage you to click on this YouTube site that link that will give you the PDF PowerPoint because it accompanies really this video. Or you can always go to our website at holygroundexplorations.com. We always begin with a section that I call As I See It, the questions of today, the issues that are sort of swirling around. We're still dealing with RAFAH and doing it in a combination of Israel's way, but under the guidance, or the puppet master, should I say, of the U.S. That's still going to be up in the air of how much freedom does Israel have to do what needs to be done without getting prior approval from Biden. We can't ignore what's taking place with Hezbollah in the north. Over this last week, hundreds of rockets continue to be launched on a regular basis. And then, of course, we've got Biden and his two-state solution, which is both, it's twofold. It's both Michigan and Minnesota as well as Saudi Arabia, normalization, the Palestinian state, etc. But as I see it, the issues that we're dealing with now have to do with clarity and how to determine truth in an age of deception. And I read this quote that simply says, "Truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. But don't let the haters keep you from speaking it." The goal of Kafir, Holy Ground, our ministry, is to be a beacon of truth. And again, we hope that this is something that you find helpful in the world in which we're living and that you would pass it on. We start with our news bites. Things that we don't want to think about, kind of the ostrich with the head in the ground. But did you know that Iran is set to reach their nuclear goal within a week or two? And again, experts in the field, pundits that are looking over the horizon will make the statement saying, if this is true, then Israel's probably not going to sit back and just watch it happen. And then, of course, we have the death this week of the Iranian president, Raisi. But as far as Israel is concerned, there's no real significant change in Iran. But as they quote from my sources in Israel, it never hurts that a talented person who promotes global terrorism against Israel disappears from the face of the earth. And then, of course, Biden has sent his condolences to the murder of Americans. Raisi was known as the Butcher of Tehran. So this standing and moments of silence is so hypocritical of what we need to be about here in America. Close to 3/4 of the humanitarian aid that's been transported from the new floating pier that was built by the U.S. military. By the way, the price tag on that was $320 million. Close to 3/4 of the aid that's been transported has been stolen by Hamas en route to UN warehouses. No big surprise there. We were warned, and that's exactly what's happened. And then on a lighter note, Hamas circulated fake news from a satirical Israeli post about the death of Raisi. And they claimed that there was a Mossad agent that was in a sense, that was flying the helicopter. And the Israel joke about Rashi's plane crash was that the name of the pilot was helicopter. As funny as that might sound, Hamas took it seriously. They didn't catch the sarcasm or how what a joke it was, and so they promoted it and sent it on their social media website. So it wasn't helicopter. Okay, so Mossad is obviously not claiming to have anything to do with what took place. We'll never know, of course, but that's where things stand. Okay, our articles for this week, we start with crimes against humanity. Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court in The Hague, said in an interview with CNN, this is where we're living right now, that he's issuing arrest warrants against, we like this, Sinwar, Mohammed Daf, but then he goes on and says, as well as Bibi Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Their crime will be, the offense should be crimes against humanity. Just pause for a moment. You need to understand that a body, a court, that puts Netanyahu and Gallant in the same row next to the abominable murderers of Sinwar and Def. This is a wretched body, and we should not be surprised, but still we're shocked. And then Palestinian state. Hamas wants to welcome the announcement by Norway, Ireland, and Spain for their recognition of the Palestinian state. Hamas billionaires would like to thank them for supporting mass murder, beheading, burning, mutilating over 1,000 Israeli civilians, and kidnapping hundreds. So thank you. And your support for terrorism is deeply appreciated. Obviously, sadly, tongue-in-cheek, but that is the reality of acknowledging a Palestinian state. You are rewarding what took place on October 7th. And then in the whole RAFAH, what they've discovered in RAFAH, that they've moved in, and they've moved out close to 1 million refugees into humanitarian camps. But one of the things that they discovered is, it's hard to even conceive of this, but nearly 700 tunnel shafts have been identified in RAFAH, which of the 750 of them cross directly into Egypt. Actually, CNN reports that the information coming out of RAFAH surprises even the Israeli intelligence. There seems to be the truth, the fact that there is a tunnel under every other house in RAFAH, a shaft. Now it's clear because of what they've discovered why Egypt really didn't want, and the world really, the Muslim world, didn't want Israel to go into RAFAH. And as much as we sort of hone in on Gaza, we can't ignore what's taking place in the north. And so Finance Minister Bezalel Smolik on Sunday is calling for Israel to give Hezbollah a final notice to vacate the border area. His quote, a public ultimatum must be issued to Hezbollah that they completely stop shooting into Israel, withdraw all their forces beyond the Litani River. And again, if that's not the case, if they do not abide by this, the ultimatum, if it's not fully met, means that the IDF will launch an assault deep into Lebanese territory to defend the northern communities. I think it's just a matter of time. And again, as I mentioned, make sure you grab that PDF because we have a map there. If you're wondering, so what's this mean and where's the Litani River, you can check that out. an article that I found interesting that was entitled "How Hamas Can Win the War," and a person of great influence in the area of urban warfare has made the comment when asked. Spencer's his last name. He said, the question was asked, do you think that it's a winnable war for the IDF? And he said, yeah, 100%. But what I found interesting was what followed, where he said, but it's also a very winnable war for Hamas. At this point, because wars are not determined just by military capability, they're a battle of wills. And if Hamas can survive, it achieves its war strategy and will have more political power than it did before October 7th. So again, survival. And that's why it's such an issue in this day to see the acknowledgement or the moving towards granting Palestinian statehood. It rewards what took place on October 7th. And if Hamas survives, they will be the victor. Now, the issue obviously in the world today is who are Israel's friends? Who is lining up and standing behind Israel? And as the pendulum has swung, we're finding more and more nations, including our own, that's raising a question of truly where we stand. So from Israel, an article says, if you stand with the Jews, if you still have moral clarity in such a morally bankrupt world, then just know that history will remember you fondly. And if you still have that moral clarity, forgive me for my generalizations, but just know you're the exception. You are. Numbers do not lie. And then a verse from the Torah that reads, lo, it is a people that shall dwell alone and shall not be reckoned among the nations. There's a growing sense in Israel today that they will and must, and even at this time, are standing alone. And then from Stan Goodenough, an article that simply says, help me understand. And just listen to these points. And again, the title, help me understand. Barack Obama gives huge amounts of cash to Tehran. We see those images, those pallets filled with stacks and stacks and stacks of $100 bills. And then we have Joe Biden repeatedly loosening the sanctions of Iran, freeing up hundreds of millions of dollars for the #1 state sponsor of international terror. Now, when Iran launches hundreds of rockets and swarms of drones in Israel, what does Washington do? It tells Israel you need to respond, not to respond appropriately. And then yesterday, the U.S. ambassador to the United States actually stood for a minute of silence along with the rest of the Security Council in honor and respect of killed Iranian President Raisi. And so Stan Goodenough writes, so help me understand, who exactly is America's ally in the Middle East again? What Gaza needs. Now we're into this discussion about post-war, what's going to take place. Here's the truth. The Gaza Strip needs moderate, pragmatic leaders who will embark on a process of de-radicalizing, re-educating Gazans to lead peaceful, prosperous, and constructive lives. But at the moment, unfortunately, among the Palestinians, no such leaders exist. Those who believe that the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, should replace the Iranian-backed Hamas terrorist group in the Gaza Strip are either gullible, badly informed, or living in delusions. Again, It is not the solution. Hard to argue with this. That's the name of this next article. And this is the debate that's happening in Israel today because of the bring them home now and the painful images of those that are still held in captivity for now over 230 days. But then we look at the loss of life among the IDF. So it's hard to argue with this, but Israeli IDF soldiers are not losing their lives or risking their lives fighting in Gaza to have other Muslims who support killing Jews, genocidal Arab Muslims, that is, taking over Gaza. The only solution for Israel is to remain in full control of Gaza. All Arab Muslims in Gaza who understand how blessed they are to live in Israel, they will be given citizenship. But all Arab Muslims in Gaza who support killing Jews, destroying the state of Israel, they can find someplace else to live. Hard to argue. Two-state solution, there's an article here. I'll leave it to you to read because we're running out of time. And I have some final thoughts just to pass on to you. Did you know that 80% of Palestinian civilians support Hamas and what took place on October 7th, the massacre? 80%. Contrast that for comparison to the Germans that supported Hitler. Do you know what that number was? 33%. How does Israel make lasting peace with a bloodthirsty population that was groomed from infancy to believe that terrorism is a way of life? I think the civilian population of Gaza needs to be de-radicalized before peace can be had. But I don't know how this can be accomplished. And this is from Marina Medevin, who is a columnist, political commentator in Washington, truly one of the best DC lawyers there are. So this is a final thought from somebody even outside of Israel. Again, those numbers are staggering. And then I end with a slide that was just released, a video that was just released, footage from the kidnapping of the IDF female troops, and the comments that were made by their captors from Hamas. You're so beautiful. And these are the ones that will be pregnant. And looking into the fear of their eyes, what if this was your daughter? And so this video that's been released has caused quite a stir, and rightly so, in the world today to see the demonic activity of, don't call them freedom fighters, of Hamas. So I'll leave you with that. And just a challenge to be a beacon of truth, to speak truth. And also I want to encourage you to consider going to Israel with us in November. We have a tour that's coming up, and we call it The Land, the People, and the King. For more information on that, you can go to our website at holygroundexploration.com. Remember to pray. That's your most powerful weapon in this day. God bless you, and shalom.